Okay, on today's video, I'm going to talk about landing pages again. Specifically, what are the drawbacks of having a landing page? Yes, there are actual drawbacks to having a landing page. You don't hear too many people talking about this, which is the reason why I decided to make this video. Now, as for the benefits or reasons why you should or have to think about it for sure when you are running PPC campaigns, of course, it's pretty clear, the results. 2x increase in conversion rates on the same exact traffic if you use a landing page versus not using a landing page. That's my typical, assuming that you have somebody who knows how to make a landing page. And I'll throw a caveat out there. A lot of people think this landing page stuff is simple. Oh, what's the difference? Oh, you want to charge, $3,000 or $5,000 for a landing page? That's ridiculous. I'll do it myself. Well, without tuning my own horn here, if I'm making a landing page, I'm getting double the conversion rates. And if I can't get it, I'll know right off the bat by looking at what landing page you're currently using, because it's good enough. Let's just say that. So that said, if you're of course going to do it the right way, as not to waste your own time on it, and pays for itself right away. So there's no reason to take a shortcut on it. If you go to a crazy extent with copying and doing everything you can with the landing page, I could routinely double the conversion rates using a landing page versus just using whatever's on the site typically on an average basis. But also where the other magic comes in with using a landing page is you can make copies of that landing page, which I call cloning it, and you can customize the headline for what keyword the user is searching for, so that the headline on the landing page matches what the keyword is on the ad, which then also matches what the user is searching for. You can also do things such as writing the name of the actual town that the user is in on the landing page, so the person right away knows, or the state or whatever, and so the user knows that you're local. And if another person from a different area searches, they're going to see a page that says their area on it. And so when you combine all those different aspects, you're not talking about double the conversion rate increase off of using any random page that's there on your site. You're talking about upwards of 5x difference in conversion rate. So there's a huge reason why you want to use a landing page. But that all said, again, there are drawbacks. I'm going to talk about what the drawbacks are. And there are also some workarounds I'm going to talk about to basically make sure you don't fall prey to these common kind of issues that I've seen. I've worked with hundreds of clients in different businesses, things that they've done when they've used a landing page and they don't have the background that I have, with seeing different things happen that they've done, so you can avoid it. And I also just tested a bunch of different things to mitigate potential problems like this, which I'm going to explain to you here on the video. So anyway, as usual on my videos, I'm going to talk about the pros, cons. Now that of course, ultimately what can happen. What can happen if I didn't verbalize it or make it clear enough? There's a way with using a landing page, assuming that you don't have this background that I do, having seen people, basically screw up their businesses with using a landing page. Basically speaking, it could put you out of business. Specifically because you're relying on so much business coming in from your campaigns today. Now suddenly you use a landing page, you didn't account for some of these things, and now your lead flow drops into a third of what it was. You have all this overhead. Now you run out of money. Now you're out of business. So it could literally be everything. So it really is important that you consider some of these things. For somebody who has a lot of experience doing landing pages, they'll be able to mitigate this stuff for you if they don't have a lot of experience. I've seen over and over again where they just quickly overlook this stuff, and then that puts you out of business. So it's almost kind of like hiring a good versus a bad lawyer. If you are also going to work with somebody with this stuff, a good lawyer is going to have the 30 years of experience, and they can think about that, to avoid all the potential, the stupid errors that could come up that could completely oh, whoops, now you're a number to the, and a notch in their belt in terms of learning on what not to do. You go to the person that's going to just help you avoid all this stuff automatically. So, in other words, to not risk your business, and you want to get these 2 to 5x increases in conversion rates that you should typically want to get. You always want to use a landing page. This is how you avoid these things. Also, this is the kind of stuff that actually comes up, so it puts a frame of reference around what it is that occurs that will actually put you out of business here if you don't do it the right way. So, as mentioned, there's a list of things, pros, cons, things to avoid, stuff, and mitigating things that you can do when using a landing page so this doesn't happen to you. So anyway, the first thing I wanted to mention just right off the bat is, first off, there most of the time is no replacement for a landing page, regardless of other issues most of the time. So in other words, even if you did not have a way to fix all this stuff, a landing page, everything in PPC comes down to what Google charges as much as they can get away with. If you're going to be able to make good money in PPC, which is usually about 20% of the players in the market at any given time. In most markets, you got 20 people or so cycling in and out of the ad space there when you run Google ads on Google. And if you're against competition that are using landing pages and you don't have this, it's very, very difficult to make yourself be in that top, the top of the 20% that makes basically most of the money. The other 80% makes little to nothing, or they just lose money and they don't know it because they're not tracking it. So as much of a pain in the butt this is to deal with, you're kind of forced to. Let's just put it that way. And I'm going to start off by explaining, I had a client who recently, this is within the last year here, it was also kind of inspiration of making this video, wanted to not use a what happened was the client wasn't using a landing page. I made a landing page, and then later on they somehow decided on their own that they don't want to use a landing page anymore. Specifically for a couple main reasons. They wanted to, for SEO purposes, they wanted the main site to rank versus the landing page. And it's true, one of the benefits you get from a landing page is that page is set up perfectly to get a conversion. And for organic rankings, Google, more than anything else, I don't care what anybody else tells you, they're looking for pages that will get a great user experience for their users. Of course, they jumble up the results to make it harder to incentivize people to run PPC. Don't attack me, Google, but sort of, I believe in that kind of thing as well. But for the most part, at the end of the day, they don't want to put at the top of Google pages that give users a bad experience because they'll go elsewhere other than Google. That's the product. So the landing page will, if it's done right and it makes money for your PPC campaign, can get very easily ranked organically. And I would tell people all the time, the days of just hiring an SEO company are over. You hire a PPC person who knows how to make money from nothing, literally speaking. Once that's going, all the traffic and customers flowing through that page now is going to get ranked organically, which is what your goal should be all out of this. And half of what you're spending on the ads then, and the ad manager if you hire one, is subsidized by the organic rankings these pages now get. Well, this person thought, well, I don't want to have to rely on these landing pages. I want the organic traffic to come into my site. That's all good and well if the site is actually better than the landing page in terms of taking a cold user and turning them into a prospect at the highest rate, or more specifically, higher rate than your competition's doing in the organic listings that are above you. I don't care what fancy stuff you try to do to get to the top of Google, if that page does not get a better user experience on average for the user, which Google tracks every single user that goes through their site, then the number one listing there, you're going to go to 2. And if you're not better than 2, and they split test this all the time as well, we'll see what happens if we take your site and put it at 3 versus 4. And then whoever gets the highest click-through rate and the highest user experience goes up in the rankings naturally, cream comes to the top, the junk goes to the bottom. So if you get up there artificially and you don't have all this rest of the stuff done, well, then you're going to stay there. And so that's why I said, and from a PPC perspective, if the PPC forces you to be efficient, that incentive to be efficient, because you have to be efficient to make money, forces you into a position where you have to figure out organically what would work, and they would want to organically rank as well. A lot of people don't think about this. So at the end of the day, you're figuring out what rank will get you ranked just by having to be in the position where you've got to self-finance a PPC campaign, make money to be able to scale up a campaign, taking the money that you make on a very small budget, putting it back into a slightly larger budget, and scaling it up like that. And having explained this stuff to the user or the client that, basically the PPC helps you rank. I don't know exactly how they came to the conclusion, but they wanted the main site to be what ranked. Because basically my speculation is here that person thought, I don't want to always rely on ads, which is, my personal opinion is that's just stupid. Your goal should never be to not run ads, because Google, why would Google want to promote somebody also that's not their customer? When people respond to it and they buy, and most people, they want to find out where the customer came from, they go, where did you come from? They're going to say, Google. They're going to be, even if you think, oh, did you click on an ad or organic? They're not going to give you the accurate information there. I can tell you that. So if they have somebody running ads, they're incentivized to also rank you organically as well. On top of that, by the way, let alone the PPC, if it works, it makes you more of an authoritative source in your business, which they don't want to send traffic to the fly-by-night companies out there, which makes obvious sense. It's safer to do that for their users, so that users don't get a bad experience. That ultimately, then they had us take the traffic from the landing page and send it to the home page. With the home page, I could tell, because I have the experience, that the user experience is going to be garbage. But somehow they thought that, I don't want to have to invest all this money into ads, and then I'm going to have this landing page, which ultimately is not our site, if you will. The other thing, though, was users were so-called confused. So like when they would call up from the landing page, he would try to redirect that person to another part of the site, and it was harder for the user to do that versus be on the home page right away. And partially that was because there's no navigation on the landing page, which if you set up a landing page, you'll have to decide if you want navigation on there or not, and there's kind of pros and cons for doing it, and sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So I try to tell them, well, we'll put the navigation on the page, it's fine, whereas before we kind of didn't want to do that, because I didn't want people, as soon as they got to the landing page, to just click on another page, because there was a very controlled process of explaining this product that's new, totally new in their category, to quickly explain what this product does and how it'll benefit you, and then you can go browse around in the site. So it's a controlled process. That's how you should be able to, your goal should be with your landing page, is to, in a very controlled way, putting the most important stuff at the top, and then the second most important thing right below it, and so on and so forth, so that you're telling the user a story, and by the time they get done with that landing page, they know what you have to offer, and you've got them already interested enough, they aren't going to go to another site, because you got them at that point. So anyway, we switched all over the home page. Now, what happened? I knew this would happen, but sometimes people got very thick heads, skulls sometimes, and I kind of feel like sometimes the reality of it is people like to have you tell them what they want to hear, and they don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. So as much as I can warn somebody, it's still their own call. They lost all the SEO rankings that they had, of course, from those landing pages, but also they decided, on top of that, they upgraded their site about that same time. And the site also wasn't as good as the original site, but they wanted to upgrade it so that it had e-commerce functionality, whereas the old site didn't. And so they lost the rankings on the landing page, along with the main site kind of at the same time. And then also with that, of course, the PPC tanked. Google Ads has a quality score system to determine whose ad's going to be shown and for what price. And a third of that, is dependent on the landing page experience that the user has after they click on your ad. So if you suddenly send people to a page that doesn't have the same experience as your landing page, regardless of your reasons, you could be going from paying $3 a click to 10 basically not overnight, but in a week. Once the algorithm figures out, holy crap, you just had me send all the traffic to a page everybody doesn't like as good. Okay, well, I'm going to penalize you now. So then the PPC didn't become profitable enough to have that 10-to-1 kind of ratio of revenue to ad spend they wanted to maintain as we were continuing, which we were previously maintaining and scaling up the ad spend a step at a time from starting at $1,500 a month and $3,000 and $6,000, which you should be doing for your business. Then we started to go the other way. Well, basically, by time, so technically we're still in this with them, but if this is you're not going to realize you made a bad decision potentially until you're basically almost in a position where you can't bail yourself out 3 months, 6 months down the road. But then you got to reverse what you did. Well, it's not good. When you reverse what you did, your rankings aren't going to come back right away. It's going to take probably another 3 to 6 months to build it back up again, because the algorithm hates volatility. Same thing with the PPC algorithm. If you switch to having something from good to bad, they react faster than something that goes from bad to good. And of course, you have to rebuild. You said you're starting from a PPC. You'll have as much money to finance it. You have to start from the bottom. So basically, they put themselves a year plus behind with that one little mistake that they did. So if you're going to use a landing page, the lesson here is you have to think about what you're using and why you're using it, and have a very good reason why you're switching to it or switching away from it, and somebody who understands this stuff, that's been doing it 10 plus years, who can tell you all the stuff that could go wrong either way, pros and cons of each, and not just randomly guessing with this stuff, because it literally can destroy your entire business. This guy's product wasn't really good already. It's something that's a hot thing on the market. Then potentially other people, and I've seen other people do stuff like this, they just go out of business. They can't. If you're already operating on razor thin margins and you do something stupid like this, you're out of business. Okay. So anyway, now, if obviously I always tell people, you want to hire somebody that's knowledgeable to help you do what you're doing, because yes, it's expensive, but at least it'll work. But you want to know enough foundation about what they're doing in terms of being able to help you with your PPC, so you don't get snowed. And so I'm going to tell you about all these different things that you kind of need to know at a high level, so you know you got the right person, also that you don't get snowed by this person and risk your entire business, because your whole business kind of rides on this stuff if you're relying mostly on online traffic to drive your customer sales, and have to have the customer sales being consistent in order to not have big problems in your business. Now, here's the drawbacks also then. So if you're going to use a landing page, or let's say you're just starting to use one of the things with the landing pages is a lot of times if you're using a landing page tool itself, like Unbounce or ClickFunnels or something like that. I use Unbounce. I stand behind that product because I've tested a bunch of them. That's the one that I like, unless you're going to be selling e-commerce style and do a lot of different funnels, and I'll use like a ClickFunnels. Usually you have to put the landing pages on a subdomain, which would be like lp.yourdomainname.com, not yourdomainname.com/landing page, which would be a subfolder or subpage where you would host the landing page, versus the primary domain, which would be, again, yourdomain.com/landing page, not on the subdomain, which was the lp dot part. Now, if you have that and you build up, like I described before, where you're investing more and more money into the ads and and trying to invest in more ads from the profit you make from the previous ads, you're going to get organic rankings on those landing pages. But if you do it on a subdomain, that subdomain is considered its own domain for purposes of domain authority to Google in terms of ranking those landing pages, which doesn't apply to the primary domain. So in other words, if you want other pages of your site other than the landing page to rank, and you're promoting something on a subdomain, you don't get the full benefit of the juice that those pages in the business and the authority that are going to be flowing through the landing pages. So there's that to deal with. And so there is a way around that, but in certain circumstances, what I'm going to describe here. So with that you're not going to get the domain trust, And so for SEO wise, if you will, then it may not be suitable to you depending on, I guess, what you're going to do. For me, me personally, just to tell you right off the top, you figure out what works on a landing page, and then if you eventually down the road you're not going to change your landing pages anymore, you could switch. You can make a mirror copy of the landing page and put it on a sub page, and point the ads to that. And you're going to, even if you do that, there's going to be a 3-month volatility period where your PPC results go to crap. But then it'll come back, and then now your primary domain's getting all the domain authority and juice from having all that traffic and customers come through those landing pages now. So you may not want to switch it, but you have to, if you do switch it later on, you'll go through the pain. But if you ask why not just stick with the sub pages right off the bat, well, that's because landing pages have all these benefits of being able to quickly edit and change and copy things. Makes it a little bit easier. No programming involved, just have to design its drag and drop interface. So at least you know the pros and cons of using a landing page builder versus not. If you have a WordPress site, you don't have to compromise at all. You can use a landing page tool called Unbounce and have it hosted on your subpage instead of a subdomain, which I'm always doing. I'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, the other thing to think about as far as landing pages go, clients cannot find. So I talked about the reason why the client didn't want to use the landing page here for that business. I described the story I told you before, because users cannot as easily navigate around the site from a landing page if you don't have a full navigation on that landing page, which, by the way, most of the time you don't. Either want a stripped down version of the navigation or none virtually, because you want people to stay on that page and interpret what's on the page before going somewhere else. Otherwise, what's the point of the landing page? So what users will do is they'll get to the landing page, and then what I will usually do is I'll have lots of links to the main site within the main copy of the site. Like if you want before and after pictures, you can go to our before and after page. If you want to see testimonials other than the ones listed here, as far as one section of the landing page, you can go to the testimonials part of our site. So you can, once you eventually, again, are embodied enough to the process of what we're offering here, you can start to go to somewhere else on the site. But on this, if somebody calls you from the landing page, and then you're just, as what this client didn't like necessarily is, okay, well, you could see what you're, I want to, do you have any before and after photos? Oh, yeah, we do. It's on the, you just have to go to the navigation and find it. Well, there's no navigation there for them to easily navigate. And so you'll have to tell them to click on the home button, which would be like the logo a lot of times, and then navigate. So it's not that much harder, but there's that to contend with. The other thing is, if the person wants to come back to see what they saw before, and not have to re-digest a whole new page, if you will, because people want to basically see what they've seen before, which is why on remarketing banner ads, I'm always designing the banner ad to look like the page design and the user experience they saw on the landing page before, and I'm sending people back to the same landing page. So they remind, oh yeah, I remember looking at that, and yeah, I want to look at it again. So they don't have to question what they're clicking on. In the future, the person aren't going to be able to find the landing page as easy as if you send them to the main part of the site. That said, again, you could mitigate that by, basically, what I would do basically is I would take, if you know the landing pages are working, I would design the main site so it's more like the landing page, because if you know the landing page now has a better experience than your main site, well, let's change the main site to look more like the landing page instead of leaving it just the way that it is. So that's one way to overtake that. But in a way, there's a lot of it, some of it I should say, you can't fix necessarily that, in that people are going to be able to find that landing page. And people ask all the time, are people going to be able to find these landing pages? The answer is no, unless you've clicked on an ad. Otherwise, you won't be able to find the site. Now on a landing page, you could definitely, like I said, you want to send people to the main site, certainly once they bought into the process. That's the goal, actually. So the longer they're on your site, the more likely they are to respond or buy. But once they get to the main site, unless they click back, they're not going to be able to find that landing page again. That's normally the way that you set it up for the maximum benefit to you. And then, of course, you have future management issues to deal with. So if you have landing pages, there could be an accidental of the deletion of the landing pages. So, of course, if you have a landing page tool and you have it, I've seen people where you usually have to set up a CNAME, is what it's called, on the domain name registration that you have through GoDaddy or whatnot, and somebody later on will delete the CNAME because they just, somebody comes along that's working with that person, the client, as an IT manager or something, will delete it, not knowing what that is. And then all the landing pages disappear for a while. Hey, where's the landing pages? And then I have to tell that person, like, your person you hired deleted the CNAME. But more than likely, they will delete all those landing pages if they're put on the main site, because usually what will happen is eventually that client will upgrade their site, like every 3 years or so they'll redesign their site. Then if they're on a sub page but they're not in the main navigation, not usually, but I guess, but a lot of the times that person will hire an incompetent company that has an incompetent manager in charge of the project, will update the site, delete all those pages, not even realizing that they're there, which a competent person would scan the site and try to look for pages like that are potentially used for a landing page. But a lot of times they don't and the pages disappear. Then you have to restore them or tell them to restore them, and the campaign's down for a while. And hopefully you can go back to Wayback Machine if they've deleted those files and didn't back up absolutely everything, which I ran into that problem. So that actually could be done, of course, through the other firms that you have, but sometimes also employees delete pages like that because, again, the CNAME, or they'll delete the pages from if you're hosting it on a subpage of your website instead of on a subdomain. So, but by and large, you're safer using the landing page tool and hosting on a subdomain, because unless they delete the CNAME, somebody deletes a CNAME at your company or at the firm you're working with, those pages are safe, which is why I like using it, because everybody updates their site eventually, and it seems like half the time somebody updates their site, if we have the landing pages on a subpage part of the site, they just delete those, which I still to this day don't understand how these people are charging people money for help on updating a website, and they don't understand this stuff. It's frustrating to me. So, and then of course, if they delete all those pages, there's accidental 404 pages as a result. So, suddenly all the ads are running to a page that doesn't work anymore, and that you lose a whole ton of money before you realize it, because we're not checking it up to the minute. And a week goes by, you've spent a week's worth of ad money on traffic that went to a 404 page because the person you hired to help you upgrade the site wasn't competent enough to help you look for this type of thing and prevent it from happening. Checking for that all pages on the site they have alternates there, and we have a way to redirect users to the working page, or we ask, what are these pages' purpose? And if there's it's for PPC, okay, let's leave it alone. So having a landing page versus the main site, in other words, the drawback is they could get deleted because other people that help you upgrade the site may not know what they are because they're not in the main navigation, like I said. If you use a subdomain and a landing page tool builder like Unbounce to host the landing pages on a subdomain, you won't have quite the potential for the issue. That's how you rectify that. Versus, again, if you send the traffic to no landing page, then for all practical purposes, hopefully the firm that you worked with before has a new page set up for the page you were sending the old traffic to, and then there'll be no transitional period where the ads are not working for a period of time. If you have landing pages and you have a lot of them, so if you have one landing page, it won't be so much of an issue, but if you copy it a bunch of times for so the headlines can match the user's keyword each time, and that user, based upon what city they're in, the city can be listed or the state can be listed in the landing page before the user scrolls, which will give you a bump in conversion rates when you make a lot of copies, so that you don't get a 2x increase in your conversion rates by upgrading to a landing page, but a 5x, closer to a 5x. I'll have times where I'll have thousands of landing pages. Well, we got to test the forms to make sure they're working like once a month. Well, we got to test 1,000 forms. Even though the form, like with an Unbounce, is technically going to be the same form, we kind of have to guess if we test 10 of them, that all of them work, if you will. And once in a while, we will actually click through each one. But even still, the email, the test that goes through, it'll blow up the client's email account. And they wonder, what the heck's going on? So you have to tell them ahead of time. So then if you, let's say you have an address change in your business and you have to update the address that's on the landing page, because a lot of times in the footer, to make people trust you, you'll have the phone number and the mailing address, which is just a little tip to you to do, so people know that they can track you down if they feel like they were not treated right. So if you have to change the address on 1,000 pages, now you have a big task. But again, if you could 2 to 5 extra results, it's obviously worth it. It's just putting your mind in perspective. Some people are obtuse enough to say, I don't want to do all this. And when you tell them you're going to lose half your results if you want to go back to not having to do this, they're like, oh, okay, which I'm almost guaranteeing they're not believing me. And then you do it, and then for 3 months they don't have as much business, and they finally admit to themselves they made a mistake because they've got a big ego, and then you have to put it back, and then it's 3 months to normalize itself again. Like I said before, just putting it back doesn't mean like this, it's going to fix itself. So you have 6 months of lost, half of your income is gone. Maybe you're out of business, maybe you're not by then. And then roll out a split test. So landing page tools, a lot of times people are using them, again, not only just ease of rolling out a new landing page because there's no HTML programming, but and you can make copies of them easily, and you don't, and it can be separate from the rest of your site so that you don't have to bug the IT department if you're a PPC manager to get you a landing page and to work on them. You test those landing pages, you make a copy, test certain elements to get a higher conversion rate, the wording of the page, some of the images, the call to action, whatever. Then you find something that actually gets a higher conversion rate, you're going to have to roll out that test if you've made many copies of them, thousands of copies of the pages, to now 1,000 plus pages. So again, it's just a small issue, but something you should know up front. And if you just put it in your mind ahead of time, all these things are just literally a drop in the bucket compared to what I'm getting from the landing page, then it's okay. So you should have that in your mind, of course, but also you'll just have to know ahead of time that you have to think about these things if you're going to be using a landing page, and that way you don't have any problems again, which is the goal of this. I made this video for you to watch. Anyway, solutions. How do you prevent stuff like this from occurring and you're one of the people out there that actually has issues like this come up, which I see all the time. Another part of the stats of people out there that are having this issue on a regular basis when they upgrade their site, or even without their upgrading their site, somebody comes along, deletes something, or the address changed, and now all the landing pages have the old address because they didn't understand that they needed to tell you about the address, and then now you have to spend a time, so on and so forth, making the address on all the landing pages. The solutions are, so again, I'm an Unbounce guy, and I'm not being paid by Unbounce. If you're using a WordPress site, obviously a lot of you guys are, there's a WordPress plugin for Unbounce that once installed on your WordPress site, you can host the landing pages on a subdomain. So what that'll actually do is give you all the SEO benefits so that you can promote you can run your ads what it look like on the primary domain, like I talked to you about that before. And though with the benefit still that you're not going to have somebody come around like an employee or somebody from another web design firm delete your pages, because technically those pages are still hosted on Unbounce. So you don't have to use a subdomain to host your landing pages. So you get all the SEO benefits, and you get all the protection of having other people that are on other teams potentially mess with your landing pages, which you want to be protecting with your life. If you're making $5 million a year off your ads eventually and spend all your money to build everything up to that, you don't want to worry about anything touching it. And the only person that can touch it is the person that's responsible for the PPC results. You should set yourself up to be in that position. If you wanted to be able to quickly change things, like if you wanted to make a couple clicks and all the addresses on all your landing pages are updated at once, technically Unbounce has an API, you could do that. For the most part, I don't do that, but it's possible. There are other landing page tools out there, like one named Go High Level, where they have it so where you could change the address on one landing page and it propagates to all the rest of your landing pages, which is nice. It, dirties up, if you will, the interface in which to interact with the pages. That's one thing that, it goes with it kind of there, which I think it could be, Unbounce could do something like that eventually. And it could be, there could be a middle ground there. But the tools and other tools that are not Unbounce that most of the people are using, you just got to know, again, I don't get paid by Unbounce here. I use Unbounce and I use it because other tools like this Go High Level that can ease an administration that you may say, this new tool out here kind of has these extra features I like, and they have to offer those features, otherwise they have no in the market to compete with like an Unbounce or Unbounce in general. And you use the tool, and then suddenly you get all that work in creating all your landing pages. And also, it's a little bit cheaper. Unbounce charges a lot, but it's also the safe option. The tool is glitchy. It's not as new. A lot of times, there's an unspoken secret about the software industry where they work out all the bugs via the customer base. You complain, they fix the bug. Another person complains, they fix the bug. Anything that's newer is going to have more bugs to fix, whereas Unbounce has been around so long. They're way ahead of getting the software stable. So the newer that it is, the less likely you're going to want to use it as an Unbounce landing page tool, which you got to be able to rely and assume that that's going to work without you. There's no way to audit everything all the time, and when a problem comes up, the longer it takes to nail it down, the more money you're going to lose, potentially losing thousands a day. So why would you want to save $50 a month on a landing page tool when these softwares, I've seen it before, there's issues with them sometimes like that. Those other tools that are not as that Unbounce or establish as Unbounce have low compatibility issues. So let's say you want to do AMP or AMP pages with like a tool like Go High Level. Well, they don't have no direct integration. Unbounce has it. So now what do you do? Well, you can't do anything. You can't run it in AMP now. They don't provide an out for you to do it. Maybe you want to integrate it with Salesforce. Oh, they don't have it. Unbounce does. So their business plan essentially isn't. This is my opinion. To get you into it, the uneducated user, and once you're already invested in the system, yeah, you find out all this crap happens, but it's too late. You're not going to back out because you're bought into the process. You don't want to admit that you've been had. And they know this. So, and of course, the last thing is, if it's a newer company, they could go out of business anytime. Startups go out of business all the time. They can't raise more funding. They go out of business. Unbounce is not going to go out of business. You don't have to worry about getting an email from Unbounce saying, we're going out of business next month. Good luck with moving your landing pages all around. At the very least, you're going to lose a little bit of money putting them on a new URL and then hopefully getting it mirror identical so Google doesn't know as much of a change. But if you're not super good about understanding how to roll stuff like that out, you're probably going to lose a ton of money before it's all wrapped up and done based upon how much time they're going to give you. They're not going to give you 3 to 6 months to deal with it. I could barely deal with it, and the average business owner who doesn't have the internal resource, just basically forget it. Anyway, the other thing you can do, using a landing page tool like Unbounce to start with, so in general, like I already touched on this before, that if you if instead of a landing page tool, you just host your landing pages on another page of your site, another subpage of your site, which you again don't link to it from the navigation, but instead of on a subdomain, or if you are WordPress and use the WordPress plugin for Unbounce, so you could have it on a subpage, then you're going to have potential issues. Anybody who has access to that as well can potentially delete it again, and you're going to lose a ton of money. You're not going to think it's going to happen to you, but I see it happen all the time. Just using a landing page tool to begin with is smart if you're going to do landing pages. Yes, it costs a little bit more. Unbounce costs upwards of $100 a month, but it's rock solid. You're going to get the results back and to pay for it 50 times over anyway. There are a little bit cheaper solutions. Just go after the the tried and true, and don't do a subpage if you're going to make a lot of landing pages. I don't recommend it. The PPC team that you work with, that you basically want to be responsible for the pages, can then work with it without having to have too much trouble. They're going to be efficient, and that's just, so in other words, I just recommend using a landing page tool to begin with. If you didn't need to make many copies of a landing page, maybe if you just needed one landing page, you could have it on a subdomain. But again, you're still risking somebody coming along and messing with it. I don't know what, because teams do not talk to each other. So somebody else who sees that, they don't know what we're doing, because we're just PPC. You could be working with a firm, even that does it all, quote unquote, which I don't believe if somebody who does it all can compete with me in PPC, which is a lot of people don't realize that, or just anybody who specializes in PPC, because PPC is so super competitive and expensive now. I don't believe anybody can hire a do-it-all firm and do well with PPC as compared to a dedicated firm. If they do it all, I've still seen where one department overwrites what another department's doing. You're not totally safe unless that landing page is under lock and key, which is what you want from somebody who is incentivized not to screw it up. Otherwise, they lose their revenue source, which the PPC firm, they know if they screw it up, you're going to hire somebody else. So there you go. And of course, if you don't need to make any more changes to the landing pages, change the password. You're the only one with the password. Your pages are not going to screw up. You're using Unbounce. They're not going to go out of business. Your results from Google Ads that rely on those landing pages are stable now. So anyway, that's everything in a nutshell about things to avoid and what the drawbacks are of using a landing page. If you have any questions about potential drawbacks, how to actually set up your landing pages so you don't run into issues like I described here on this particular video, leave me a comment. I get back to everybody who leaves me a comment on this channel. I have a lot of other videos on this channel, different PPC money making strategies so that you can make a lot of money with PPC. If you haven't checked into those, check them out. I also have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog where there's more step-by-step instructions in order and how to get results using PPC as well, if you're into that. But hope that you found some good value in this and are going to totally bypass all these issues that people have with their landing pages and using them, and so it doesn't happen to you, and you have, other words, you had someone to tell you otherwise before you had to learn the hard way.